Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. I just got this in the mail from our good friend Gareth Brookes. This is his newest experimental self-published piece that, as I just found out in talking to him about Veronica Mukic's Cyberman, he also was talking to me about the fact that he's getting a PhD in comics, and he's especially interested in the symbolic nature of material, and so he's doing these little experiments as part of his PhD process with making comics where material carries a lot of the meaning. And that's one of the things that I immediately enjoyed about his work when Menachem from Escape Pod sent me The Dancing Plague, and I went out and bought all of Gareth's work, and you can see a review of the big chunk of work that I got from him. Definitely do that. There's an interview with Gareth. There's a lot of content on our channel about Gareth Brookes because I just really think he's great. So this is a new one. Of course, I ordered it. This is called Ashes, and like a lot of his work, these little experiments, this is drawn on a napkin, and he's really taken advantage of the way that the napkin can get beat up, and he's also taken advantage of the fact that drawing with charcoal on a napkin will take like an impression, so it looks like he's like doing drawing and then smushing it or folding a napkin or something. I'm not quite exactly sure, but there's a really tactile sense to the visuals here. Again, like with Gareth's work, I always wish it was like actually printed on a napkin or something, but I know why he's not doing that. And when we talk to him, he's saying that he actually enjoys the sense of loss that he can create when a reader like me wants that tactile sense and we're deprived of it. That seems to be part of what he's interested in. This is definitely like an experiment work. It's not a huge story. Gareth is capable of really big, continuous, like powerful stories. So I know that he's doing what he intended here to make like these little more poetic statements. These small experiments that he does often seem to have to do with the idea of like longing and loss in memory, so that longing to touch the page goes along with it. One thing that I found really interesting throughout here and that he's playing with is that these marks that he make, they're almost like a Cy Twombly painting, where they're taking the look of written language almost, and they're just turning that into pure mark making, and they will sometimes have words in them that are decipherable. There's one page in particular where like I could read a couple words. I forget where it's at, but I could read the words in it and then, not read the rest of the words in these messes. And you can see here like where he must have folded the paper and then squished. And that's something I really like about Gareth's work. He's always dealing with like interfaces. We asked him about that and he's like, oh yeah, I guess. But everything that I can tell that he deals with, he's really interested in how things interface, whether it be like pressing or like piercing through, like he does with all his stitchery. I think that's a really interesting thing because he's always talking about relationships too, and relationships are like an interface. So I really like that, when whether the artist knows what they're doing or not, like I can find a through line in what they're doing, and I can start to build a bigger picture of like, even though the projects are kind of all these different things, there's still really different types of stories, like futuristic sci-fi stuff, little poetry, medieval stories about people in a plague, dancing plague. I can find a through line in all of that, and it really gives me a sense of someone who has something to say, something that they keep picking at, and I like that. So really, really love this, as I love all of Gareth's work. Really happy to have it. And during my last talk with Gareth, I was trying to put my finger on artists like him, Veronica Mukic, Roman Muradov is another one, Andrew White. There's these artists that I've been finding in the last year that feel like something new to comics, and I was trying to put my finger on it, and I was saying it's not like the last time I was having my mind changed about comics, like when I was seeing Chris Ware, and I mentioned like Dan Clowes and that kind of Fantagraphics, like mid to late 90s wave of comics getting smarter and better. This stuff feels like the next evolution of that, and I was trying to figure out what the difference was. And reading Gareth's book and seeing this Cy Twombly kind of stuff settled it for me. What I was trying to say is and I'll probably use this phrase a lot going forward, but I feel like the Dan Clowes, Chris Ware, all of those people that we hold in really high regard for good reason, they were bringing comics to art school. And there now seems to be a wave of creators that are bringing art school to comics. So bringing all of that art education that I'm familiar with, the theoretical stuff, the philosophical stuff that goes along with it, the awareness of materiality, the awareness of like a conceptually tight unit where every like the medium goes into the meaning. All of this really, really smart stuff that I've seen in all of these artists. And just an awareness of art history in a different way where it's not all comics history. They're not really referring to comics. They're visually actually referring to art world figures that I'm familiar with. You know, Cy Twombly in this book, or Andrew White with Yoko Ono. They're not referencing back to like comics from the 1950s. And I think this is really, really great for the medium, is that people are bringing art school and, you know, PhD studies to comics. And I think it should go that way. We should be bringing it to us. We don't want to bring it to them. I've been to academic conferences and they ruin it. And so, yeah, I really like this, and I'm glad I can now refer to what it is that I think I'm seeing. So love comics that brought comics to art school. Thank you for doing the work, but I'm so excited to see people bringing art school to comics. And I think Gareth is definitely one of the people at the forefront of that, and one of the best that I've seen so far. And I'll always be buying anything that Gareth does, and you're going to see reviews of every bit of it because I think it's worth sharing. And this is... I got number 8 of 120. So go to GarethBrooks.com, or sorry, gbrooks.com. I'll put a link and get yourself a signed and numbered copy of this edition of 120.
One of the best ways that you can support what we're doing here on the channel is to support the books that Sean's putting out through Living the Line. The first book that he put out is The Strange Death of Alex Raymond. It's a collaboration between Dave Sim and myself. The book was recently nominated for an Eisner Award in the Best Reality-Based category. It's a deep, deep dive into the artwork and methods of Alex Raymond and the mystery surrounding his death in a car crash. So if you haven't grabbed that already, please do. There's also Yokoyama Yuichi's Plaza, which is a totally intense manga by an artist who has somehow figured out how to distill manga down to its purest essence. This book was successfully funded on Kickstarter, but if you missed the Kickstarter, you can order it through any comic store, any bookstore, Amazon, any place that you would normally get your graphic novels from. The Abolition of Man is a 5-issue mini-series done by myself and Sean in collaboration with the Midjourney AI. What you're seeing here is the cover to issue 1 and the first couple pages of issue 1. This first issue, we fed it an essay by C.S. Lewis, and this is just the imagery that the computer spat back at us. Issues 2 and 3 are a narrative, starting with the story that I wrote when I was 21, and then Sean's going to write issue 3, picking up where I left off. In this one, I'm kind of trying to force the AI to give me the images I want, and then doing some tweaking in Photoshop to get these kind of colored looks on it. For issue 4, we're turning the task of writing over to the AI as well. So the AI has written the script, and then we've just put that into the Midjourney AI, and it's turned out art. The script and the art is some of the absolutely most horrific stuff I've ever seen. We're a bit scared to even publish this issue. And I don't have any art to show for it yet, but Sean and I have decided to do a 5th issue of Abolition as well, because we have someone who we're really, really excited to have on board, providing an essay for that 5th issue that will illustrate, and we'll announce more about that soon.
Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
What's your